Quite often I hear that vegans cause more harm than carnists because insects and small animals are killed during the cultivation of crops. This excuse is highly disingenuous because carnists love to ignore the intentional acts of cruelty they perpetually commit when they indict vegans as animal abusers. In the same way a sleazy defense lawyer with a rapist client ignores the rape and tries to blame the victim's behavior for causing the rape. Carnists are an endless array of walking contradictions. They demand equality, the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, but refuse to extend those beautiful rights to the animals they've instead commodified as food, clothing, entertainment, and research specimens. They treat dogs and cats like gods, but happily munch on the cut-up corpses of cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, and fish, all while claiming that killing insects and small animals when cultivating crops bothers them. Next time there's an article online about animal abuse, scroll down to the comment section. If the victim is a dog or a cat, carnists will say that the victimizer should be tortured, castrated, or beaten to death, and how they would love to deliver that punishment. If the victim is a pig or a cow, carnists will say, bacon, or I love steak, or it's just a fucking animal. Who the hell cares? The reality is, without using one drop of hyperbole, carnists care as much about animals as pedophiles do about children. Their vacuous rebuttals are no different than a 5-year-old whining brat saying, I know you are, but what am I, over and over again. Since vegans don't eat animals or animal products and refuse to wear animal skin, when we beg carnists to minimize the cruelty that animals endure, our plea is genuine. We acknowledge that animals die because humans roam this planet, but that there's no need to maximize the cruelty by enslaving them and stealing their babies, and then murdering them in slaughterhouses that we've carefully constructed in city after city all over the world. On the other hand, carnists always consume as many animals and animal products as possible, mock or deny the suffering that cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, and fish experience, and then urge everyone else to do the same. Because eliminating the evil things that humans do to animals is not an option for them. Since this world is ran by carnists, anything that has to do with agriculture is once again their fault. Ethical vegans are forever trying to clean up the blood trails that oppressors leave in their paths. If we were in charge, issues of injustice would be solved, because we actually care about ending cruelty. Vegans cause the absolute minimal amount of suffering to the animals and the environment, while carnists are hell-bent on causing the maximum. But even if it were impossible to prevent the deaths of insects and wild animals when cultivating crops, the freedom these creatures experience is 1,000,000 times better than what enslaved animals in the meat, dairy, and egg industries experience. Even our unjust legal system recognizes the difference between premeditated murder and an accidental death. Also, there is no proof that every harvested plant involves killing an animal in a field, because wild animals have a chance to escape once the land is being cropped. At least they can hear us coming and make a run for it, which is something cows, pigs, chickens, and other animals on the menu never have a chance to do. In closing, carnists intentionally kill billions of cows, pigs, chickens, and other animals for a meal they do not need. Intentionally destroy the environment with animal agriculture for meals they do not need. Directly participate in world hunger by funding industries that feed 50% of the world's crops to animals that will eventually be killed for food. But according to them, vegans are the problem, because we eat plants that they too eat. In a nutshell, it's called cognitive dissonance, because in their wrapped up minds, no solution exists. Because any solution would require them to change their evil and selfish ways, which they are simply unwilling to do.
It all goes back to intent, all right? So, much like he said that there's a difference between when you're charging someone with a crime, there's a difference between manslaughter and there's a difference between first-degree murder. First-degree murder, you are intending to kill someone. Manslaughter, you killed someone incidentally, okay? So no system is perfect, and veganism is not perfect. No one's saying it is. What we're saying is when you intend to cause pain and suffering and pollution and species extinction, that's very different than incidentally, like I'm driving right now. If an animal runs out and I hit it by accident, there was no intent there to cause harm. It's an unfortunate part of our society that we drive cars and we kill animals. If you look at a lot of parts of society kill animals incidentally. It's a sad thing. Clearing land to build new subdivisions, you're going to incidentally kill some animals. On a very small scale, though, you're going to kill some native rodents, some insects. But those animals are going to be affected that one time the land is cleared. And that's the difference between animal agriculture that's constantly expanding the amount of land they're clearing. They're burning the rainforest so they can then go graze their animals on that land. And if you look at the percentage of land in the United States used in animal agriculture just for them to graze on, let alone the other part of the operations, it's astounding. If you compare that to fruit and vegetable farming, fruit and vegetable farming takes up far less land, far less water. And so obviously we're using less resources, but we can produce much more food and healthier food. So we're not using our land like we should. And even though we have primary water, which is renewable, we don't have access to that on a grand scale yet. We see what happened with Gaddafi when he tried making that, happen. So you can keep using these excuses that really, point the finger at vegans, instead of acknowledging your role in this, Carnist, and taking responsibility. When I was eating flesh and dairy, and I learned all these facts, and I didn't just watch one, documentary and think I had it all figured out. I researched. My sister was working for an animal legal defense fund, and I learned a lot from her. She'd been vegan for a long time, and now she is a writer for a conservation group. And so I accumulated the facts over time, and I realized that, contributing to animal agriculture for me is immoral because it's not justified, because it's unnecessary. We don't need to do it to survive. But when I really learned about the species we're wiping out and the resources we're using that are really not responsibly used, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So when you point the finger at vegans for killing far more animals, it's illogical, irrational, and untrue. Vegan fruit and vegetable farming is not causing at least 200 species of animals to die, to go extinct every day. It's just not happening. It's happening in animal agriculture, though. And even your grass-fed beef, going back to, well, I'm not destroying the rainforest, I only buy local. Well, if you buy local, guess what? You're paying someone to keep clearing land or keep their land cleared so they can have their animals graze on that land. And they don't always graze on the land like you think. Sometimes they're just in their pens and they're fed dried up grass, or aka hay, and then that's their grass fed. So these grass feds, these terms are just marketing terms. But the bottom line is, far more animals are killed, far more species of animals are killed in animal agriculture. And the big difference goes back to intent. You have intent with one, intent to cause harm, suffering, pain, murder, pollution, overusage, and irresponsible use of resources. That's on the Carnist side. That's on the animal agriculture side. On this side, you have incidental. It's going to happen. Just like clearing land for subdivisions happens, it happens with driving cars. No system is perfect, but we're not intending to cause harm. And what we're focusing on is taking up far less resources, causing far less harm, far less deaths, and is actually healthier. Healthier for the environment, healthier for the human body. Therein lies the difference, Carnist.